All right, back to business. So, for those of you not in the Discord, which you should be, come on, let's be real. I have added generics. To an extent, a few things aren't working, but that's just some bugs we have to fix. As you can see, well, this compiles just fine. So, x of int 4, perfect. We call it like that. And x of string with hello is fine as well. Now, I can abuse generics to actually accept any type. So for example, here, the type and the type here is all handled in build. So I can actually use this functionality to say, okay, I want this function I can use this function in C++ and I can write implementation and the type doesn't matter what we put it. So that's why I implemented generics, right? Obviously this is an error, as you can see, an error. And we're gonna work a little bit on some errors today because they're not very informative. Now, another error I have, or another logic error I actually have, is you see I'm gonna try and stress test generics right now, right? Let's say I did that and ran build rscript.examples r. So this should yield an error. Examples, generics. Expected integer expression to assign to variable of type integer. So the error should actually be here, where the 4 is. So we're gonna work on this today, right? So we're gonna work on types and errors because the errors we have aren't the best, if you ask me. All right, let's get into it. So first of all, as you can see, if a function is inbuilt, my compiler actually doesn't care whether or not we pass the generics in, which is a bit strange. So right now it works fine, but for a function where for a function where we would actually want them to specify a type, like type cast, for example, I could call this without specifying type. So we're gonna have to fix that first, all right? But first of all, types. So as you can see, TArray here doesn't yield an error. And well, the way I parse types is a bit weird because currently TArray or T question mark array is the same as a TArray question mark. Now, that's not true. Like, obviously the compiler shouldn't be doing that. So T question mark is T or null, right? That's what T question mark is. So then, therefore, TArray with a question mark should be T or null array, right? Now let's try TArray question mark. So therefore, TArray question mark should just be TArray or null. And you can chain this, of course. Like, it's pretty weird, but you can do T question mark array question mark, which should be an array of T question marks or null. And again, you could do this even more. And this should be a T question mark array question mark array or null. So that's how it works, right? So let's implement that first. I think that's something we need to work on. Or we're gonna work on this, sorry. But right now what we need to do is, first of all, fix this error. So you can see the type up here is a T array, and the compiler actually thinks for and T array that can be assigned to the parameter. So you can see it's actually done in the equals function. So if the array count is equal, if one of them is generic and the other isn't generic, obviously 4 isn't generic, and our array count's equal, then it works. Or are generic IDs equal and array counts equal? Or we are optional and the other type is null. Or other.typeID is type ID. Or our type IDs are the same and array equals, and so everything equals basically. And of course you could stick in some stricts here. So what I'm thinking is, how is this not working? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into GNU Debugger. GNU Debugger. We're going to call break at type info. No, we're going to call break at type info.hpp44 and run that with examples, generics. Okay, so let's print the other. So the other type is an int, and the current type, which is the type of our parameter, is a type ID of 0. It has generics, and it has a generic ID of 0. So let's try this. Print generic, print other.generic. So we know that's, and then print AEQ. So obviously the array counts didn't work, which is unfortunate. What I'm going to do is go back into type parse. Something's wrong there. And as you can see, we parse our array counts. So I'm assuming what happens here is we're actually calling converted from generic. And imagine we were converting int with an array count of 0 to a generic with an array count of 1. Actually, the array count here is equal to the initial array count. So this should be an equals, I think, not a plus equals. And as you can see, array count is equal to array count. So let's break at this then. Let's see. Alright, that's okay. Reference current token. That's okay. Reference current token. That's okay. Dereference current token. That's okay. And there, repr t. Array count. Okay, array count is 1. And what's the array count of tinfo.array count? 0. So next. Wait a minute. But when we went up here, you can see the array counts are back to 0 each. Wait, no, this should be a plus equals. Okay. Instantiate generic function has a problem where it copies the function and then yeah, see, it's going to go into this constructor that I made, which does a deep copy of everything. It does deep copy of everything. And you can see for all the parameters, we get its type info and completely change it. But See, it gets the generic type. The generic type conversion, which is the int. But what I gotta do out here is say, if they don't equal, so if the param dot type info dot equals, if it doesn't equal new param type info, comp error, you know what, I don't actually need to do this here. We can do it back where it should be. Auto reference parameter of the function parameters. If parameter type info dot equals, if it doesn't equal yeah, but we're doing that down here with type verify, right? So what we should be doing is maintaining the array of the type. So instead of just saying, oh, this entire thing equals an int, we should just be sticking int onto where the type is. So all we have to do is go into the constructor, change resolve generics in, and do info dot type ID is generics dot type ID. So now, hopefully, if I call make with examples generics red script, it should give the correct error, saying obviously we can't pass 4 to a type array. Now while that's building, we need to also take a look at parsing types like this. So, for example, an array could be this, or an array could be optional, or the type could be optional for every single array, right? So we need to add some stuff into the types for that as well. So let's go back into type info. And what we need to add is all the array counts. Then we need to make a vector. The evaluated type of this expression is not allowed here. Yeah, so I have to make those errors, but you can see now 4 isn't a list, an int array, right? But if I made an int array, I array, which is an int array, and it equals 4, 3, 2, and then I pass I array, there we go. So this works fine. See? Now, no, it doesn't, because there's no operation for a list and a number. That's weird. And what if I don't pass the generics in? And I just said, this is a number. I don't actually need to pass the generics in, are you kidding me? So cannot assign list instance to a non-list type variable. So we have to make that a list. And that works fine. But something's not right here because obviously okay, so adding to lists is apparently allowed in my language, which shouldn't be. But we're gonna fix this right now. So a vector of bool array optionals, right? And obviously the type itself can be optional, but then every array itself can be optional. Or array, well, this should be a pair of two bools. And we'll just comment this saying array optional and array strict. So to check if like this type equals this type, we don't need to go through all the lists. But if the list type is, if the types are equal, as in the array count is equal, so T array array yeah, that should equal that. This should be able to convert to T optional array array. So we need to make sure that the array is equal. Now what about T array optional array? Can that convert to, or T array, can that convert to a T question mark like that? Yeah. What I'm going to need to do is make an inline bool flag compare with the type info reference other, and oh my god, this is a bit too weird. So let's just take a step back. Okay, we're just talking about one array here. So this is an array of optional T. Or let's just put int in here for reference, right? So let's just put int, 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 and int. This is an array of optional ints, and it can itself be optional. So this converts fine. But if it wasn't optional, so if this is optional, then that works. And null can be passed in for that. But now what about the other way around, right? Int optional array cannot convert to int array. And an int optional array that is optional still can't convert to this. But what about this? So what I'm going to do is actually get rid of this function and put it in can convert to. So you can see here, I think the optionals have to be equal. Or the other is optional and we are not strict. What I might do is I might just do a strict comparison and say, you know, well, if the other is optional, like for example, if we're trying to convert from this to this, and this is strictly this, or imagine this is strict. What if we had an int maybe array, which was trying to convert to an int strict? That works. No. This works. This is quite confusing. This works because the array isn't optional. But if it was, optional, mm-hmm. I'm going to do a static helper function. I'm just going to say, what we're going to put in here is a const. So we should take a pair of two bools left hand side and a pair of two bools right hand side. First index is optional, second is strict. Right? So we can just call this exact Boolean conversion here. We just return the left hand side is optional. Wait a minute. So the left hand side is optional, and no, the right hand side is optional, and we are not strict. And left hand side dot, yeah, and we are not strict. So left hand side, right hand side, left hand side, right hand side, left hand side. This is gonna be second for all the stricts. This is gonna be first for all the optionals. First index is optional. And then second is for strict. Okay. So is this const expression? Not sure actually. So what I'm going to do is actually just copy all this, and I'm going to do and type decorators equal or convertible, and we just have to pass in optional and strict, and then static. I'll just put const expression here. I think this can be evaluated at compile time. Optional strict, and then other dot optional, other dot strict. Now if we can convert to another type, then we should say compare flags, compare array flags. So we can just return true and then just go for auto. Well, first of all, if our array count equals other.array count, we can just return true. Wait. No, if it doesn't equal, our array count, we can actually return false. So then we go through all the array counts. So we go through in array flags. We just do size t I 0 I is less than array count. Then we can do item is array flags dot at I if item dot first sorry, all we have to do is get the other item is other.array flags dot at I, and then if type decorators equal or convertible item and other item, if they're not equal, then we return false. Simple. Now, how in God's green earth do I implement compare array flags? Well, a type is equal when the array count is equal and we compare array flags. And we just take the other type. So the array flags are gonna be, so if it's optional and not strict, or optionals are equal to optionals and stricts are equal to stricts. Sounds fine to me. Now I just need to go back into parser and parse that during type parse. So if after the type, then the type is optional. And then while we're just gonna say if match token type symbol with info of question mark, then well, standard vector, standard pair, bool. array flags. Array flags. Well, I'll make a pair bool flag. I'll do flag dot first is true. If we match token type of symbol which is strict, flag dot second is true. If we match a token type, so obviously if a match is true, then we go to the question mark or the exclamation mark, right? If we match a token type of symbol instead of a square bracket closed, and well, actually, if we don't match any symbols, we're not going to match this. If we do match one, and then they add another type, well, we can just comp error, syntax error, invalid type notation, a type. It's fine by me. And then we could do array flags. Well, other types will be nothing. Oh yeah, and then finally, array flags push back flag. Now, if it's converted from a generic, right? Imagine we passed int array maybe to this function. Then this t would become int array maybe array. So it become int array maybe array. Right? So this int array maybe, the whole thing needs to be passed, but this array needs to be prepended. So here we do tinfo dot array flags dot push front, no, insert tinfo array flags dot begin, array flags begin, and array flags dot end. Else we can just tinfo array flags dot insert at the end. Actually, no, if we know the type ID, no, we can just say array flags is equal to array flags. And for now, I'm going to deprecate union types are deprecated as of this version. Okay, that should do it. I hope so. What I should be able to do now is have a T array, T maybe, array maybe. And now that I have an int array maybe, aha, this should cause an error, first of all. Int array strict. Well, oh my god, okay, a lot of warnings. Yeah, it does, look. Invalid type, oh yeah, that's because I haven't built it. Missing initializer for array flags. Okay. So this is so this is a strictly integer array. Can I just, you know what? I want to get rid of strict for now. I don't even want to worry about strict. I'm gonna ask the community what do they think of the strict keyword. But so now that I get all these undefined errors, and I just got to go all the way up and rebuild. Like I don't understand CMake sometimes. So this should work, right? Int array, passing it to a... No, this shouldn't work because we're having an int array maybe array. So this, we're actually turns into int array maybe. Array maybe. Right? So all we're doing is sticking on that type. And if it has an array count here, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Resolve generics. All we do is... So we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna get the generic. So type info reference t is, we can do t.typeid, and then we also need to append the array data, don't we? This is really weird. So all we're doing is taking info and taking the generics. So if we're generic, in other words, I'm generic, we're going to change the type ID from int to t. And then we also need to take the array. So imagine this was an int array maybe. Then all of that needs to go here. But because they're both maybe, that's okay. Right. Mm-hmm. So the optionals work fine there, right? We know they can convert, but they're lost in translation. So we're still just left with an optional here. Now, the array here needs to go and be... Yeah, it should turn into int array optional. Array optional. So if the generic type is optional, oh my god, I'm going down such a rabbit hole. If the generic type is optional, for instance, I imagine just snippeting in this int array into this t here. That's all I'm doing, right? Let's try it with two arrays that were optional. Like that. So this would turn into int array optional, array optional, array optional. Yeah. Array optional, array optional, array optional. So if the If info is generic, so we know generic is info is generic. For instance, T, imagine int array and T, right? We'd have to take all the arrays and pass them straight into T. So we'd have to do info.array array count. Actually, the array count's done for us. All we have to say is that if T is optional, and this entire type is optional, this is doing my fucking head in. So we take our generics and we just stick them in. Well, fuck this. If we match a symbol, if we match another symbol, if we match any symbol at all, after that, what does match do? We peek. If everything goes right, we advance. Okay, I found the error. It's actually down here in my original code. What we should do in here is we actually should advance. No, sorry. Oh shit, my bad. All this should be after the close bracket. Like that. Okay, I'm gonna go off, but thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys soon.